me and my friend, we were like ready to be scared. We were like tucked into our recliner chairs with our snacks, and we just kept looking at each other like. Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Ghost in the Magazine. I'm Stef.
And I'm Elle.
And this week's movie is Late Night with the Devil. Can I tell you something really annoying?
Sure.
I can be so annoying sometimes. Usually it's when I'm by myself, thank God. But when I was getting ready to see this movie, I kept randomly going, late night. And then I would start giggling because I was scared to say with the devil. Yeah,
Okay.
I know.
Okay, Steph.
I was scared going into this movie. I was actually afraid. I said this movie, I said it repeatedly because I got a friend to go with me. I said this movie might actually scare me. This movie may actually be scary. The trailer was so good.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't scare me.
It's kind of difficult for me to kind of pen this down because it did a lot of things right and it did some
Mm-hmm.
things very wrong. Um, and I'm gonna start with the fact that you like I hate found footage as an excuse to waste my fucking time. You needed to edit that beginning part down, like half of that, because it doesn't really get interesting until Christu comes on. And honestly, if I was watching that at home and I had just paid admission fee and was sitting in a theater, I would have turned it off at the beginning because that opening was boring.
It was so boring. And like it was just like a boring like TV documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some little nuggets in there that could have been super interesting if maybe they just focused on the two things. Just a little blip of, this house of occult worshippers,
Mm-hmm.
boom, rescued this girl, boom. And then the rumor that he's in this satanic group, boom,
Mm-hmm.
boom, cool.
Yes. I like that he took like a Jerry Springer late night turn at some point, and I think they should have they should have like explored that further. Personally, I would love to see a late night show that was more Jerry Springer, like let's get them to fight. Um
Yeah.
there used to be like a claymation one on MTV when I was a kid. That was like Celebrity Deathmatch. Like let's just do that.
Deathmatch.
Let's bring it
Yeah.
back, but real. Um Also like this
Yeah.
Bohemian Grove men's only club, that sounds totally straight. I'm just want to say that because I was like there's a lot of churches. Okay, so I come from an area that is like very evangelical, and there are a lot of churches that are like uh men's only Bible club, totally straight. And I'm like,
Yeah, they did some stuff in the woods. I, I'm just putting it out there. But I feel like maybe this movie would have done better not as found footage, not as this recovered tape from that night. Giving it that angle, I expected there to be a lot more tape, and I expected there to be some real crazy stuff.
yeah.
They could have put some real crazy stuff.
I don't want to skip, but I need to because I feel like we need to just discuss this film as a whole. The ending
Mhm.
was baffling. I don't
Yeah.
understand why those choices were made for that. I think like honestly the image of the girl with her head split open and like the electricity coming out and like all that was a very like terrifying visual, but that's the only thing they got right in that entire thing. Instead they choose to have like this time slip thing with him, and then they don't explain it. But what I think it is, what the more I thought about this, he made a deal with Abraxas apparently, and Abraxas is an interesting thing. That's not really the devil in the Christian pantheon. Abraxas is more like associated with the Gnostic demiurge, which is a different thing. But like, I'm not gonna pick at that. Um, but it seemed like he made that initial deal to get famous, and that the payment for that deal was his wife. And typically
Life.
that's not how demonic deals work, first of all. Again, I've researched this extensively for books.
But I've watched Supernatural.
Yeah, that too. But typically they're not that dramatic, okay? They're not going to ask that much of you. They're not, it's not a life for fame. That's really dramatic. But I mean, let's say we're rolling with this. The second one would be to resurrect his career, which I mean, certainly it made him live in infamy. And so the second deal would be the girl's life for it, but
Why?
it's
Like
just,
why?
yeah, especially because they pull the tape. Now it's like shown as found footage, assumedly, like, you know, what, the 70s is like 40 years ago, 50 years ago. How I don't fucking know. I have no goddamn, like,
Math.
yeah, math and time. Those are things I don't know about.
No, we're just girls girling around. Who does math? Partially, I do believe, I say it like every episode, we consume a lot of content. I think that I expected way too much from this movie. Not my fault. The trailer was lit. It's not my fault. And I went into the trailer like, this is a possession movie.
Mhm.
That's what I'm waiting for, because that stuff, like, it really gets me. It was like a
Yeah.
tiny little blip, and like the biggest thing was hypnotism and earthworms. I don't care about that.
Okay, but Gus reminds me of my cheeseburgers from Bad Channels. The bumbling
Yeah.
helper guy. What's for Dangerous Dan? I always called him my cheeseburgers because he had that epic line. I think his name's Corky or something. I don't care. He will always be my cheeseburgers in my heart.
Cheeseburgers. I'm only here for Dan.
I'm not there for Dan. Ew. Dan looks like Michael, looks like in my mind. So
Please don't ruin Dangerous Dan O'Dare for me, please.
so I do think that the writers knew what they were doing with this. And I do
Yeah.
think they were trying to create a cogent plot. I think they made some choices that were interesting. I did think at one point they were going to try to make the skeptic the baddie, which I was very interested in that. I remember
Yeah.
like being bored up until that point where he does do that hypnotism. And then I was like leaning in, like, where are we going? Where are we going with this? But then that ending came and I was like, all
Yeah.
right.
I don't think the end worked at all for this. Because if this is found footage, how are we seeing that? How are we
No,
seeing what is going on in
in his
in
head.
his brain? That doesn't
Well,
make any sense.
yeah, and it breaks the found footage premise there. It does it in a very, like, very confusing way, storytelling wise too, because I'm just like, I'm not sure what I'm looking at there. And I mean, they can be
I
like,
love that.
oh, it's whatever, it's the way it's supposed to be confusing. But I guess I'm just kind of over those horror endings that it's like very vague and like we don't know
Some
exactly
people,
why.
some people though because I've been, ever since I saw it, I've been watching the horror groups to see what people are saying about this movie, and it's a very split. So there are people who think that this movie is a masterpiece, and I think it's because of that vague ending.
Mm.
And then there are people like me, like people who said the exact same thing that I did. This movie had a bitchin' premise, okay? It's solid. They could have gone so many different ways with this. And I feel like, personally, I feel like they should have leaned into the demon stuff and the secret society stuff. Lean in. And that it was just underdeveloped.
Yeah.
And it's just a very 50-50 split in that. I'm not mad at this movie.
No.
This little possessed girl, creepy as hell. I really loved the late night talk show vibe. I thought everybody was great. Chris Dew spooked the fuck out of me, honestly. And then the fact that he died,
Mm-hmm.
the way I would have been off that set.
You know what was insane is I was in a theater watching this. This
Mhm.
fucking old man sitting there eating popcorn during that scene, and all of a sudden he just starts coughing like Christy was coughing. And then this other person starts coughing like down the thing. There were five of us, I think, total in that room. like 3 out of the 5 people just start like spontaneously coughing this whole time. That like that scene where Christy's like sitting there kind of like next to him, still answering questions but coughing.
Yeah.
I'm just getting
His eyes are
unnerved at
not-
that point, because
I would
that's
have
why I came into the thing and I didn't see that played out either. Is I thought they're like, oh, this taping goes wrong to consequences across the country. What are those consequences? I wanted to see this as an effective piece of media. That's actually what I was
yeah.
interested in for storytelling, and they didn't do that at all. So
No. First of all, if I was in that movie theater, I would have left. I'll come back another day. This is not meant for me to. Nope, no, I would have left. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not doing it.
I don't know, maybe it was just like
Our price
watching.
compelled y'all. Not me.
I think
I
it
don't
was an
know.
interesting choice to use as Abraxas and not like a goetic demon that would have more, like, I don't
How much
know.
work did they put into choosing? Okay, did they just Abraxas it is? Did they flip a coin? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
how much effort did they put into that? Because these specific elements are underdeveloped, it makes me think not much.
Well, they did drop the word Gnostic, and that I wrote that down because I was surprised, because Abraxas is from the Gnostic school of thought. So that made me think somebody somewhere at some point knew what they were doing. And that always interests me. If
Is
I
that
think,
word in the little Wikipedia blip that they found about this little
let me
guy?
see. Let me find out.
We are detectives, okay?
Yes, it comes up in Google.
Period. That's if I think that really solidifies that's evidence
Okay, I
to me.
had high hopes that they did some research. I don't know. I get so excited when I think somebody put a little bit of research in, because the thing is, like, I do this and I'm writing shitty fucking, half the time I'm writing smut. And I put actual occult research into my fucking paranormal romance.
That's what we keep saying. Let us write these movies for you. Let us give some input, okay? Tell you
Or
what
just
to do
hire
and what.
someone that will. Like, I just
They
want a
cut
little bit of
corners.
care put into the storytelling. That's all I'm asking.
Corners are usually cut in Hollywood,
Yeah.
okay? And they probably think nobody cares about that. But like that is the difference between, your movie being a certified banger and like just barely like just missing the mark.
But this one cut other corners. There is AI art in the background of a few of the scenes, apparently. And I'm sorry, I'm not a fantastic artist, but I saw the art that was in there. I think that most people with like an ability to use stencils and like just like being able to paint something in a line, like even being able to paint with a, why did you need to AI that? It doesn't make any fucking sense. It was the most simplistic
Oh,
art like that you could, I'm just, you could have taken that to a high school art class and been like, you want to be on a movie, bitch. And they could have given you art that wasn't
yeah.
AI art that didn't get everyone pissed off. Like, what? How are you so low budget that you can't figure that out? I'm sorry. It baffled my fucking mind when I saw that's what they got in trouble for. I'm like, of all the fucking things, this is what you get in trouble for? It's not even like an effect or something. It's like generative AI art in the background that looks like just the most stock 70s background you could possibly find from a TV show. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so frustrating to me. I'm just like, God damn, dude.
Yeah, why were these decisions made? Please help us. Please help us understand. But I mean, it just it just could have been so good. I wonder though, because of the way that this ended, and I just really wonder if they're gonna make us like a sequel.
I hope if they do, they hire somebody that knows like how to tell a story. And it's not that, that sounds really rude, because they did tell a story. There was very interesting elements to it, but I feel like there is just this, you get me in with these interesting elements and then you don't bring it together. And I think that that's more disappointing to me as somebody watching the movie than it would be if like it was just a pile of shit, because then at least I could
Yeah.
laugh at it. Instead,
Yeah.
I'm like,
No,
I love this part of it so much. I loved Christu. I loved the fucking skeptic guy. That was a great character. How smarmy
Yeah.
he was. He reminded
Mhm.
me of like that James Randi asshole, and then that fucking like some kind of like George Carlin-esque type character. Just it was like a very well-rounded, and to have him flip at some point would have been brilliant.
Yeah.
And and then the fact that they it seemed like he was flipping and then he did it, that was good too, because it was like they zigzagged on me, and I was there for every second of that, but then they fucking landed the ending that way.
I, no, it was just I get really, really like butthurt when I'm in the movie and the ending is bad. It makes me like lose faith in everything. I'm like, everything was a lie. I don't know who I am anymore. What year is it? It just doesn't sit well with me. You know, if you work on something, I know making a movie is a huge deal, but like you're releasing it for us. So if you feel like it's like the episode, there's this episode of American Dad where Stan is trying to win an essay contest to meet George Bush, and he's fixating on the end of this essay. He's like, it has to be perfect. Like, it just don't submit the essay with a shitty ending when you know everything else is gold. Don't
You
do it.
have to
Sit on
land
it.
it.
Yeah.
Honestly, it would have been a better ending if they would have taken off that sequence at the end, even. I think that where it pops out of found footage into his. Unless you know what else you could have done? Instead of fucking having that cliche shit where he's like imagining he's doing something else and doing like something under possession, under madness, under hypnotism, whatever the fuck you want to say it is. Sorry, Steph's mom. You could have bounce into the future like any point, like you could have been like he's in jail, he's
Yeah.
he's in a mental hospital, he's still in Hollywood doing other weird shit, acting really fucking strange because he's like possessed, he's like taking this on, whatever. Like there's a million different ways you could have taken that story, and that's just like me spitballing in like 5 seconds just because I'm irritated. Like I'm sure that people who write movies who know how to do this, if they sat down and brainstormed that, they could have come up with a million times better ending than that. I just don't understand why we did it. We could have even explained him like mentally going through that process in a different way. It was just the way that it was done was so
Yeah.
unsatisfying.
Yeah. That word, right? That's perfect. It was unsatisfying when there were so many satisfying elements to this movie, and that kind of ruins the movie for me. Like, uh, I'm
Yeah,
definitely gonna watch it again when it hits Shutter, but like,
me too.
mm,
I like the worm tummy mesmerism thing
I
myself.
seriously even like I feel like even if the hypnotism was cool, right? And it really makes you think like, what could this MF hypnotize me to do or see? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? You feel like you have such a grasp of your own mind, and then he shows you you could not at any second. Like that's scary too. Yeah.
You know how much I would pay for like a hypnotist to just holodeck me for the rest of my life, believing that I was living a better life than I'm living? Like, come on,
Oh my God.
hypnotize me to believe that
Okay,
I'm,
sucker punch. It's like
huh?
being lobotomized and you're in sucker punch
I don't
and you
fucking
think
care. I just need to be not here, okay? Hypnotize me to believe I'm not in Eastern Washington, brother. Like, let's do this. Come on.
there's another episode of American Dad. I haven't you haven't done a Star Trek reference in so long that I have to do an American Dad one where Stan gets these goo pods from the CIA and all of their really great family vacations. It was just them in the goo. And it makes me think, let's
Put
get
me in
some
the
goo
goo.
pods.
Put me in
It
the
does
goo pod.
wreck your reproductive system so you can't have babies, but in this day and age, that's a win.
I'm good.
Are we rating this?
I think we need to, but like I hate to, because like my expectations for this was to be like 4.5, 5 chuds, but I think
Yeah.
it's probably closer to 2.5.
Damn. I was gonna give it 3.
I was gonna give it 3 too, but then I remembered how long the introduction was on top of
Oh,
the
I
ending, and I was
forget.
like, I have to drop it, because like I get that we're trying to create this, but you could also be like, we've cut it for like content or whatever, because I literally don't want to watch the dry beginning of some fucking dated ass TV show. I'm just not interested in it. Like the little bits of the documentary weren't as annoying to me, but like having to watch every painfully like dad joked beginning of that
Yeah,
show.
we didn't need that.
Ugh,
Also, can I just say they could have even though I thought that the satanic stuff was probably the best. They could have cut that out and made the possessed girl scene longer
yeah.
and put all that in there, and it probably would have satisfied me more, to be honest.
Especially because like what was the fucking guy's name, like the pastor? It was like Diablo or but it was like something stupider. It was like they deleted a letter out of it and did it. I can't even remember what it was now, but it was
Really mad.
dumb. And he looked like fucking some kind of like busted ass Ron Jeremy wannabe.
Oh no.
It was gross.
It
Let me
was
see.
like it was ghetto.
It was. It was.
It was ghetto. It was like a trap house, but for Satanists.
Diabo. His name was Diabo. Bitch, come
Get
on.
out. Get out. Just take it
Go
all
to
out.
jail with Anne Rice. Just
Go to jail with rowing. We really didn't need all that. Like we didn't. Chop the beginning and the end, make the middle longer, and you got yourself a banger.
right. Right. And like get into this infectious media thing. Like I want to see somebody tell me a story like that. This flirted with it in the trailer only, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And the reason I always loved Carnival of Souls is because again it was flirting with that, with her organ playing and like it being hypnotic and stuff. Please somebody write me that. I want to read that story, I want to read that book, I want to watch that movie. Yes, I could write it, I don't want to. I'm busy, I've got
No.
other stuff to do. Please somebody do
Yeah.
that for me.
Like critiquing movies. We're so busy doing that.
I'm so busy laying in bed reading smut.
I'm too busy laying in bed making my Sims do crazy stuff.
Okay, that's valid though. As I said, there's a room in my mind palace that is just it's in the attic and that's where bad men go. And it's like a Sims game because it's all rugs and fireplaces and I can delete the door whenever I want to.
I was crying reading that. Yeah. Nah, this is why we're best friends. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna give it 2.5 also. The beginning.
Yeah.
And me and my friend, we were like ready to be scared. We were like tucked into our recliner chairs with our snacks, and we just kept looking at each other like, right.
I was really primed to like this. I was so excited about it, especially because when you first told me about it, I couldn't even find it in my area. And I wasn't surprised. But
That's my thing, though. Like they really set this up to be like scary as hell. Like they
mm-hmm.
set this up to be like an event. Only I live in South Florida, okay, where all the things happen. Very few theaters were playing this,
Yeah.
and it was just like for a week, and then whoop, gone. Like you're promising us and not delivering on your promises, and that is disappointing. That makes me
Yeah.
sad.
They also, I don't know if you noticed or if it was the same in your theater, but there was like 70 fucking production companies involved with this in the beginning. I
Oh, I
was like,
thought it was a joke. I thought
okay,
it was a
maybe it
joke.
was. I was like,
No, I
what the
don't know that it
fuck?
was, but literally it kept going, and I'm like looking around, like, are we being
No,
punked right now?
no, but it is. Okay, so there's Image Nation Abu Dhabi, Vic Screen, AGC Videos, Good Fiend Films, Feature Pictures, and Spooky Pictures listed on their Wikipedia. That's 6. That seems like excessive.
Is excessive, and I was like, this can't be for every time you think the movie's gonna start, another one comes out. I
Yes.
totally thought about that, and I just at one point really loud in the quiet theater, I'm like, hello.
Like for all of that production involvement, you think they could have made a solid movie. I'm just saying.
We can't trust. You can find this podcast on the interwebs at ghostinthemagazine.site or on Twitter at GITM Podcast. You could find me on Twitter at Witchex Pudding.
And you can find me at Nocturnical.
Okay, bye.